Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome an accomplished and respected entrepreneur from Mumbai and Delhi, India, Mr. Vineet Mittal. Vineet, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ashutosh. Thank you for hosting me.
Thank you. Vineet is the chairperson of the Avaada Group. He had founded Wellspun Energy and successfully monetized the company to Tata Power in 2016. His notable recognitions, among so many others, include the prestigious Solar Man of the Year award, and he's a fellow member of the YPO. So, Vineet, before we talk about the Avaada Group, tell me about your own journey in brief.
So, like you, I'm a Marwari, born in a Marwari family. Um, I was the first person in my entire large family who worked for the government. So, I started my career as a bureaucrat after doing my engineering and was instrumental in launching Internet for India. I became part of core team at BSNL, which was launching Internet. And then that exposure gave me access to things very early on. So I started as a small venture in .com. Then I transitioned to set up India's first few BPO called Stream with the help of ICICI Venture. We were probably their first ever investment in late 99, early 2000. And that venture I monetized by selling to a SPAC company in the US in 2008. And then I got exploring various things that what should I be doing next after selling the BPO company, and started exploring that what is my purpose as an individual, and should I always continue chasing money, or there is much more to life. And I've always believed in the Indian culture, and I'm inspired by Indian values of Artha, Kam, Dharma, and Moksha. And so, as you probably experience yourself, that in our culture, making money ethically is considered part of Dharma.
Correct.
And so I said that let me do something with my life which not only creates a successful venture but has a larger purpose to help the society. And way back those times, the biggest challenge, if you read any newspaper, used to be electricity access, and almost 320 million Indians don't have access to the grid and power, and that was the biggest challenge. And I started telling to myself, if I can provide electricity, then electricity is inversely proportional to poverty. I would become the source of social entrepreneurship, and would help India become a developed nation and more knowledgeable society, because even schools don't have fan. That led me to start Wellspun Energy way back in 2009. And so that became my transition to, or foray into the energy sector that time.
Amazing. Amazing. And let's talk about Avaada. What is the story of your journey into the renewable energy sector, and what motivated you to focus on green energy?
So actually, when we started as Wellspun Energy, that time the goal was to provide the energy access to Indians. And so we started with thermal, we started with solar, we started with hydro, we started with wind. We were fortunate that we got our first MOU done with the Gujarat government way back in 2009. And in late 2010 or 2011, we started giving grid power using 15 megawatt of solar project. So we were pioneer in setting up India's first large ground-mounted solar power plant. But at the same time, during Wellspun Energy days, we managed to get all things going for more than 5 gigawatt of thermal power. And then one realizes the adverse consequences on environment of thermal power. So we monetized that business by selling it to Adani Group in 2014 or 15. And we started focusing a lot on solar and wind. And we became probably Asia's first company to meet 1 gigawatt target of operating asset by 2015. And in the process, I had raised money from ADB, DG, and GE. And at some point of time, a lot of my friends and family from IT days used to tell me that I used to be star at the IT and why I have chosen an industry which is difficult and full with all the challenges. So I wanted to prove to them that it is not only a social venture, but it can make a lot of money. And then in late 2015, we decided to monetize it. And through a reverse auction, we discovered Tatas and several others who were interested in buying us out. So we sold the renewable energy also to Tata Group for almost 10,000 crore plus, and created the first success story in the green energy in Asia. And it kind of proved to the community at large and our well-wisher that it's not just a responsible business, but it can be profitable as well. And after monetizing well-spun energy, I was at cusp, and that what should I do next? And then I did an exercise with help of one of my coach about the world with Vineet Mittal and world without Vineet Mittal. That if I didn't exist tomorrow, what would world miss about me? And when you have capital and you have free slate without any baggage, you can actually wander and think a lot. So I took 3 to 6 months to understand who I am and what I should be doing next. And then I realized that our country needs to decarbonize, and it's just the Taylor which we had seen through our first venture in energy. It has more depth, and probably I can do bigger and better. And that's how actually I created Avaada. And this time, actually, even the name I derived based on I did with my senior leadership a workshop where I made all of them do this exercise, that world with them and world without them, and how they would want to be remembered. That and basically, I gave all of them a book from Robin Sharma called "Who Will Cry When You Die," and I said that let's imagine that we get a chance to see our own obituary and what people will talk about us after we are gone, and how do we want to be remembered. And those exercises were quite powerful and was made a lot of people vulnerable, that how do we want to be remembered. And then in that exercise we found that what clicks with us is the Indian culture, Indian value system, and then we derived the name with Ayurveda. So we took A from that, science of life, and Vada, that whatever we'll do has to contribute to society at large. And, if we can't do good, we would never do bad either. So say, for example, we would not get into any industry or sector which pollutes nature, and we will nurture the nature. It became the larger goal to start Avaada Group, and then the whole thing unfolded.
Amazing. So we need to also tell me, for a lot of our young viewers and listeners, what are some of the biggest challenges the renewable energy industry faces today? And what are the benefits of renewable energy for the common person?
So the biggest challenge renewable energy faces is that by nature, it is an intermittent power. It's based on solar, wind, and so it cannot be reliable 24 by 7 into 365 days. So that's the biggest challenge of renewable energy sector.
Right.
And when you look as an entrepreneur, the biggest challenge is comes from that these projects requires large parcel of barren land. And then when you build transmission line to evacuate those powers, it goes through people's property also. So that creates a right of way challenges. And then there are regulatory issues like any evolving country is facing. But for anyone who is exploring this sector, Government of India probably has the most ambitious plan in the world to put solar on every rooftop in the country. It has one of the most encouraging policy around rooftop about solar, wind, storage, and my own study says that in next decade or less than decade, it will be more than $1 trillion opportunity. So for a country like ours, the biggest advantage is that the whole sources of energy is divinity itself. So I tell to my old team that Avaada uses the blessing of nature, sun god, wind god, and Jal Devi, water, to provide round the clock green power. So what we do is we use sun to create solar energy. And because of our geography, usually the wind comes from 3 in the evening till almost 2 a.m. in the morning. So solar and wind are complementary in nature. And if you combine that with water batteries, which is like you pump the water during the day and put it on the hilltop and bring it down when you need it. So you can actually, using the technology, you can provide round the clock green power, like a conventional power, and fuel India and decarbonize India. So I think it's an amazing opportunity, and probably I tell to my team that the two things will transform the world. One is artificial general intelligence, and second is the energy transition.
I thought you'll say the second is Avaada, but well said. Great response. Thank you, Vineet. My next question is that given the amount of, as you said, it's not perpetual power, what strategies do you employ to manage and mitigate risks in the renewable energy marketplace?
So actually, in renewable energy, the biggest risk are regulatory in nature in any evolving country. So to build a department who understand all the regulatory aspect and can advocate with the government what is good for country, what is not good for country, and to keep learning all the time the global policy nuances, and to interact with multilateral agencies like World Bank, EDB, IFC, UN, COPs. So you have to be part making solution, not just in India, but globally. So that's how you address the biggest risk. And the second challenge is that supply chain problem. Like post-COVID, what world is realizing that you cannot be dependent for supply chain on many countries. So you have to someday start making your supply chain more reliable and robust. Uh, so what Avaada did is that Avaada actually said that we want to get into a fully integrated energy story where we are going to use the abundance of nature and control our own destiny as a company. And what we have done is we are no more just a green energy company like we used to be during Welspun Energy time. We are now an integrated sand to molecule company. So when I said sand to molecule company, what I mean is we are going to change sand into silicon, silicon into ingots, ingots into wafer, wafer into solar cells into solar module. Use those solar panel, wind power, and water batteries to create green energy, and use that green energy to split water using electrolyzer to make green hydrogen, and use the green hydrogen to make green fuels. So we are not dependent on anyone to buy my green electron. I can directly sell my green fuel as a substitute for petrol, diesel. I can use it for decarbonizing the industry. And my strategy now is that whatever world consider as the risk, make that into your strength and make your business model so robust that you are not dependent on rest of your world for your survival.
Fascinating. I love your sand to sell strategy. But tell me, are there other companies also following the similar strategy, or are you one of the early movers?
I actually don't focus too much on competition.
Okay.
I've always believed from the time I have become entrepreneur that the cake is big enough, and I believe in Indian philosophy that of Chittam Mantram. That, first, you have to create a space in your own mind of what you want to achieve.
Correct.
And you start seeing it, that how you are going to achieve it. And then things start falling in place. And even if you have competition in something which is value adding to the society, then you should actually make an encouraging environment for them. Because the days of competition or narrow mindedness is over. It's a days of cooperation and competing at the same time. So it's a concept of competition. The cake is too big. Like we still have the whole marine transport to decarbonize, which is, if it was a country, it's a third largest polluter in the world.
Yeah.
So if a world can provide that 300 million ton of green methanol, the kind of opportunity will be that all the top 100 groups in India can doing it, and there would be much more for the next 30 years.
Very well said. Well said. Great response. So, Vineet, my next question is that given the amount of energy demand in our own country, and there always seems to be a shortage, no matter how much we seem to be producing, how can India accelerate its transition to a cleaner and more sustainable energy future?
So actually, there are a lot of bottlenecks. The bottleneck is that energy and energy transition in India is governed by the federal government, like the central government program, whereas the execution happens into the states. And states are governed by their own priorities. Their priorities sometimes is not similar to the central government, because central government looks at India's energy security, it looks at greening the country, it looks at several larger vision, and which may not align with the state policy. So as a policy matter, power is a concurrent topic where central and state government has to work together. So it's the same issue like the earlier we used to have the concept of sales tax, where every state will have its own taxation. Similarly, on the energy also, almost literally every state has their own policies, processes, and stuff like that. And probably the priority is not the same. The good news is that the solar, wind, and storage together have become almost half the cost of conventional power. And so now the economy is driving energy transition. But as you rightly said, that energy addition is happening in India, not transition. So we are always short of power, and we are growing at 7 to 8%. That means energy has to grow at 12 to 13%. And we are not adding enough, because we are not working very smartly with all the states of India. So there is a need to have a power council, like a GST council, where states and central together make the policy for energy transition. And say, for example, Rajasthan, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, or Maharashtra says, I have a lot of barren land. I will provide the land. I will provide the evacuation, and rest of the country agrees to buy it. And for every tender we are having reverse auction, so we keep doing 1 gigawatt, 2 gigawatt. We have to say, as a country, we need 500 gigawatt of these energy by 2030. Let's identify 10 players who have the credibility, technological know-how, financial background, and ability to execute it, award them contract through the transparent process, and let them run for 5 to 6 years. Like Avaada in the last 5 6 years of our existence have done more than 4.6 gigawatt of operating asset, and now we have 20 gigawatt of total projects. And we want to be a 30 gigawatt company by 2030. So a
Amazing.
small startup like us can think of investing lakhs of crore into this sector and able to attract quality investors like ADB, DG, FMO, Proparco, GE, PTT, Brookfield. Then if government kind of broadens it, you see the kind of entrepreneurship it will create, kind of job it will create, and the kind of prosperity it will create for India. But there is a need to get every state on board on that.
Well said. So we need to have time for two more questions. My next question is, what are some of the most significant technological advancements in the renewable energy sector that you are excited about?
So I am actually, like when I started this sector, we used to install the module of 100 watt peak or 70 watt peak buying from a company like Fast Solar. Now my company itself is providing modules of 700 watt peak, and land requirement has reduced by almost one-fourth. And we are generating power from the front, we are generating from the back. So like what we used to study in engineering college, you are doing practically day to day, which is called bifacial solar panel, doing the solar panels on top of river where you save water and you save evaporation losses and use them for producing energy. Advancement in battery storage system are particularly exciting. And for India, we are blessed with so much of water and abundance of geography to do pumped storage and water batteries. And then on top of that, we are blessed with human talent, which we call it that India is not about IT, it is about Indian talent. And we are building software technology based on AI, where at 5 minutes interval you can schedule and make solar, wind, and pumped storage and batteries dispatchable power. And that will increase the flexibility, reliability, making renewable energy more accessible and practical for widespread adoption. So that excites me. I think next 20, 30 years, all of us have to work in India to make Indian society largely decarbonize, in the industry, decarbonize our transportation and decarbonize our energy grid.
Well said. And my last question to you, Vineet, and this is for the thousands of people who will listen to our conversation. You've been an amazing entrepreneur. First you said you're a bureaucrat, then founded Wellspun, sold it, successful exit, started a new company. What would you say are three lessons from your journey that you want a lot of our young viewers and listeners to take away?
So I would say that I was blessed to be born in Indian cultural family, which taught me that what is the purpose of life. And what my grandfather used to teach us when we were growing as a kid, that the purpose of life in itself is Chittananda, to be joyful.
Yeah.
And your work and your life should be governed by the guiding principle of Indian culture, where it is said there are 5 purposes. The first purpose is to pay back the debt of your parents, Pitrin, which actually teaches you how to be grateful to your parents. And with their blessing, no dream can remain unfulfilled. So I think that was a lesson of life which I value the most. And the whole concept is that we have 5 rinas, and our purpose in life is to pay back those 5 rinas. One is pith rin, second is the rin, which we call it bhuta rin, the rin for the nature, where nature gives us water, air we breathe in, everything literally comes from the nature and Mother Earth. So we are our role as a responsible Indian is to preserve the nature. Third thing is that when we live in the society, we benefit so much from the society. As a human, we should desire to give back to the society which has given us so much. And fourth is towards our teacher, our culture, our country. Country is the fifth one. That our purpose should be driven by that. How do we uh, feel indebtedness towards our teachers, our country, which is giving us everything. So if you incorporate these five filters in your decision making, then what happens is you get a power which is unparalleled, because most of the things happen in human mind. And what I have experienced, that if you have to unleash your own abundance, first you have to start believing in yourself. The believing in the self starts with the being thankful about the people who have helped you to reach where you have reached. Once you get that humbleness in your life, and you believe about you starts increasing, then like we say in India, that whole inayat works for your dream to become successful.
Very well said. Very well said. Vineet, on that note, I just want to say thank you so much for speaking to me about your own incredible journey. I think our viewers and listeners have a lot to learn from the way you have so matter-of-factly and yet in such a humble manner communicated how you have been able to build such an amazing business group for which you sold. You're on the cusp of another major opportunity that you said is the $1 trillion opportunity, which you're saying is the Avaada Group. I learned some new and interesting things about you about energy and the renewable energy and green energy from you today. Thank you also for the lessons that you spoke about so well and articulated the purposes of life. Thank you for speaking to me, and good luck to you.
Thank you, Ashutosh, for hosting me and bringing out best from me.
Thank you.
And my namaste to all your listener, and to divinity in them.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.